Welcome to this week's episode of On Record PR. I'm Jennifer Simpson Carr, and I am joined by our Chief Innovation Officer, Leslie Richards. Hi, Leslie.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we are gathered here today to record an episode that will release on Monday, September 22nd. And we're talking about a pretty hot topic, which is how fast search is changing and what all of these acronyms mean that are part of our daily conversations now. So for so many years, SEO or search engine optimization has kind of been the cornerstone of conversations around digital marketing, around your web presence. So things like how do we help a firm rank higher on Google? And how do we, how does that ranking help drive traffic to their website? And so now we're hearing GEO, generative engine optimization, which took me a while to remember actually. And we're hearing conversations where the two are conflated, and there's a little bit of confusion, understandably so, because this is new and changing fast, as to what this all means and what the difference is. So let's start there. What exactly distinguishes GEO from SEO, and why is it important for law firm leaders to understand the difference?
Okay, so SEO stands for search engine optimization, and that is the practice of optimizing your website so that it is picked up in search results for Google. And search results for Google are those results that appear underneath the sponsored ads up at the top. You type in a query, you get 3 or 4 sponsored listings up at the top of the page, and then you get a section of results that are not. Those are links to websites, typically, right? And so the user would click on it, it would generate traffic. What's happening now is Google is providing an AI summary above all of this, above the sponsored results, above the earned or organic results. And so what people are doing is reading that summary, and then many times they're not clicking through to anything because they've gotten the answer where they need it. So this is impacting website traffic. But what's also happening is, in addition to that summary that Google's providing, they're also providing on the right-hand side of the screen a list of the sources that were used to generate that AI summary. And so generative engine optimization refers to getting cited in those sources on the right-hand side. It also refers to getting cited in platforms like ChatGPT, Perplexity, etc., as a source for their content. And for the first time, really, since the inception of search, we're starting to see we're starting to see some search traffic get siphoned off of Google. It is still by far the dominant player. So it still is the one that matters most. But we're starting to see things like ChatGPT show up in people's referral traffic. In other words, when you look at your analytics at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, however often you do it, and if you're really doing it, you're looking at them on an ongoing basis, daily, weekly, whatever, you're looking to see who's sending traffic to your website. And increasingly, ChatGPT and platforms like that are showing up in that list of referring properties to your website. So that's why it's important to understand the difference. One, SEO is about getting placed in organic search results. In other words, not paid, not advertising. Search results on a Google page, which provides people with a link to your website. And the other is about getting cited as a source for an AI summary. That's GEO.
So that's a really helpful distinction. I'm still learning a lot about this from you and Izzy every day.
Yeah.
One thing I want to go back to that you mentioned is what is called the zero-click search, just to kind of tie those two things together. You
Sure.
mentioned that when someone searches now, they can really get an AI response that answers their question. And so they
Yeah.
do not need to go to a page. And I just want to tie it back for our listeners who may still be learning like me as well, that that is what is called a zero-click search, so that term's come up a lot. And we are going to drop in the show notes a link to an episode where you explain in greater detail what a zero-click search is and why that matters and how that's changing. So I just wanted to tie that back to the example you gave. So based on these changes that we are learning about GEO, can you give an example of how law firm clients might be finding lawyers differently today than before GEO became what it is?
Well, one of the big ones is they're less likely to land on your website, right? They're more likely to get an answer. And we're talking about people who don't already know who you are. Somebody who's in market and knows that they need an IP law firm, or knows that they need somebody they need a bankruptcy attorney. Or somebody who maybe understands the legal landscape, but is looking to see what happens when they go online in terms of visibility, authority, all of that, right? So, so what is important is understanding that showing up in that source list for an AI summary gives you a couple of opportunities. One, there's the potential that somebody will click on you in that source list and drive traffic to your site, but it also does a lot to enhance the perception of your brand as an authority on a topic because you're getting cited in an AI summary. So I think in terms of understanding the importance and the value, that's where it lays. It's in the validation that you have significant contributions to the topic that's being discussed in the AI summary.
So here's a loaded question for you that comes to mind as I'm listening to all of this. Do keywords matter anymore?
So people are still getting the bulk of their traffic, even as AI summaries and generative engine results start infiltrating. People are still getting a lot of traffic from just regular old organic search. So if you're already running an SEO program, I don't think this is the time to stop. I think that this is the time to look at overlap between SEO and GEO and how you can maybe just refine and tweak your existing strategies to make sure that they position you to be successful in both AI search summaries and traditional SEO organic results. I also think that if you're looking at really ramping up for GEO, for generative engine optimization, keyword research might still be valuable in terms of understanding how people are talking about various topics online, what kind of language they're using. If you do a search, for some research on a particular keyword and you see that there's a lot of volume and a lot of interest around that keyword versus another keyword, that gives you some idea of where to focus your energies. Unlike the efforts of SEO to really hone in on a specific keyword and get found for that, GEO is much more about dominating a topic. And so I think you would start with an understanding of where your audience and how your audience is discussing this online. And then you develop a content strategy that dominates that topic with a really robust content offer. So subtopics that are related to your main topic, variations on the topic, but it's less about a match with a specific keyword, and it's more about a really strong, robust content cluster around a particular topic.
So positioning your attorneys and your practice groups as authorities on a subject matter.
Yeah. And authority matters a whole lot more for GEO than ever. So this is another place where I think if you're really going to drill down on GEO, you really need to start looking at how you establish authority for particular topics. So we're on SEO, we're really focused on the website as the destination or the goal. A GEO campaign, you're looking at distributing your content more widely. So LinkedIn profiles and publishing to those on a regular basis, a Substack, industry publications, things where you're getting third-party confirmation and profiling of your expertise on a particular topic are more important for getting cited in those generative engine searches, because Google is using a framework that really investigates and values authoritativeness on a topic and expertise on a topic. For law firms in particular, and any industry that has a sizable impact on people's lives, so law, healthcare, things like that, Google has an even higher bar to meet when it comes to authority and expertise. So for law firms, having your content published widely on third-party platforms, whether that's a Substack or a LinkedIn newsletter or an industry publication, an alumni publication, any number of places where you can be present as an author on a particular topic. That's really valuable in establishing that expertise and that authority, and Google is really looking for that when it evaluates your content.
It's a really interesting change to search from my perspective, because over the last many years, there's been a significant change to how clients search, not literally, but how clients evaluate
Yeah,
their prospective business partners in a law firm. And so, rewind years ago, they would go to a lawyer and say, I know you're a great lawyer. Can you help me solve this problem? Regardless of whether it was IP or a contract issue. But that has transitioned to clients searching for experts, and I know that we can't use that word ethically,
right,
but
right.
experts or authorities in a specific niche area of law. And so, as I'm learning more about this from you, GEO actually supports even further the way clients are looking to validate that they are choosing a lawyer that is an authority in their field. So
Yeah.
I find that interesting, and it should, from my perspective, tie nicely into thought leadership and other similar campaigns that law firms are already deploying.
Yes. Yes, 100%. And I think that law firms are uniquely positioned. I've said this to the team, I've said this to clients. I do think that law firms are uniquely positioned to do well with content marketing in this kind of revised criteria, because lawyers have been working on establishing credentials through their whole career, and publishing is something that comes naturally to them. It is part of the industry. So they just need to be a little bit more intentional about how they do it. And they also need to think about ways in which they're already generating content, whether that's showing up on someone else's podcast, writing for a webinar or a seminar, presenting at a conference. All of those things are content that they can reuse and distribute and further kind of bolster their online presence.
So we're going to pause here for a message from our sponsor. And when we come back, we're going to tackle one final question, which is for our listeners, a practical first step that they can take after this episode to start working towards thought leadership that supports AI-driven search results.
Okay.
This episode is brought to you by Furia Ruble Communications, a public relations and marketing agency serving law firms and businesses worldwide. With an expert team positioned throughout the U.S. and supported by an international faculty, Furia Ruble enhances our clients' brands through integrated communications by providing expert guidance in crisis management and high-profile litigation, protecting brand and reputation, and supporting internal marketing teams. To learn more, visit furiaruble.com.
Leslie, we're back from our sponsor message, and I want to wrap up this conversation because it's a very big topic. And I feel like when we talk about some of these abstract concepts, sometimes listeners can walk away feeling like, wow, how do I make any movement in this area? So I'd like to ask you, what is a practical step that a listener can take to prepare their content and thought leadership for AI-driven search results?
Sure. And this this is something that hasn't changed. And I've been doing this since the early 2000s, so 20 years. It's hard to believe our technology has been around for that long. Provide real answers and in-depth content. If you're going to ChatGPT and asking it to spit out something for a blog post that just kind of regurgitates what's out there in the world, and you're publishing that, you're not helping yourself. Really think about the way your clients speak to you, what they're asking for. Obviously, you can't give legal advice in a blog, but you can talk about topics generally, and you can provide genuine insights and detail. Detail helps establish that this is content that's unique and beneficial. If you are answering people's questions, that's what Google's after. It's what it's been after for 20 years. It's what it will be after 5, 10, 15 years from now. Who knows what the world looks like then, but this is the goal of this platform, is to answer people's questions in the most efficient way possible. So be specific, be detailed, show your depth, show your expertise. Number one. Number two, start generating content and publish it as widely as possible. If you are publishing on a regular basis, you are establishing your expertise. Manage your LinkedIn profile. Put stuff on it. If you've contributed a piece of thought leadership to the firm's website, or you've appeared at a conference and presented thought leadership of some kind, repurpose that and put it on your website. And then as the individual attorney, make sure that you say, recently I spoke at such and such. We've posted a summary of my comments here. I hope this is helpful. Post that to your LinkedIn profile and follow best practices on LinkedIn, which I know you and Gina have coached lots of firms and attorneys on. I think those are two easy places to start. Meaningful, valuable content that answers people's questions in the language that they ask you, and making sure that you distribute that content as widely as possible. If you're on a podcast and there's a video, put it on the website. Make sure it goes on the firm's YouTube page. If the firm doesn't have a YouTube page, that's the place to start. I mean, things like that. We just need to start thinking of it instead of here's my website, which is the way we think about SEO. Here's the digital ecosystem. And how do I show up in as many useful places as possible?
That's incredible insight. And this distribution strategy is what we call COPES, create once, publish enthusiastically and strategically.
Yes.
And it is the way to leverage the content that you're creating in meaningful ways across the digital ecosystem. So for our listeners, we will share an image of our COPE strategy so that you can see visually a little bit more about what we're talking about with repurposing and sharing strategically. So, Leslie, I just want to thank you for joining me today. I think what I've taken away from this conversation is that this new concept of GEO isn't just about search rankings or algorithms. It's really about reputation and
Yes.
positioning yourself as an authority in this AI-driven results world. And, as I think about kind of the key takeaways, I think about a holistic content approach as you're thinking about
Yes.
communication strategy, publishing thought leadership and trusted outlets, right? You mentioned backlinks earlier, right?
Yes.
How do you get those backlinks through public relations, through being a source for the media, building authority through consistent PR and media relations, and ensuring that your firm's story is told, or your story as an attorney is told through multiple channels and across different digital platforms.
Yes. No, you've summarized it really beautifully. I think that's exactly the right thought process. It is a reputation building as rather than a reputation management where we're often trying to correct for something we, maybe something that's less favorable. We're talking about reputation building, right? We're talking about taking what you're doing every day, putting it out there in multiple platforms so that you create kind of an ecosystem around your brand, either as a firm or as an attorney, that establishes your authority in a particular topic. And PR is super valuable for that because you're getting placement on other platforms, on other digital properties. And those properties are often linking back. Not always, but in some ways it doesn't matter, because if they see, even if Law 360 doesn't provide a backlink, if they see that you've been published on Law 360, that still impacts your authority in the eyes of digital platforms like ChatGPT. Backlinks themselves do come from PR. Like, for example, the PR Newswire does provide backlinks to websites. That's a very good way to establish kind of a backlink profile. It says, okay, here this entity has a lot of people who are interested in what they have to say based on the way people are linking back to them. So PR has a kind of a new importance. It's in the role of kind of digital visibility. It's always had a role in sort of maintaining and building reputation, but now it has a really direct role in almost like the technical side of search engine and generative engine optimization.
And you've really helped capture why approaching your communications from different angles is important, because you mentioned Law 360 as a credible source, whether or not they give a backlink, but also oftentimes in public and media relations and marketing, we and in-house professionals are asked to justify the cost of something like a distribution on PR Newswire.
Right.
And so the fact that it has a backlink is one of the reasons
that we advise that to clients. Yes.
Exactly. So thank you for kind of tying those things into a more holistic approach.
Yes.
I think that's really valuable guidance. So thank you again to our listeners.
Sure.
We always appreciate you tuning in. We welcome your feedback and your ideas for our show, your questions. Continue to send those to us at podcast@onrecordpr.com. If you've enjoyed today's episode, which I have, please consider leaving a review for us. That helps. And share the episode with a colleague or a friend who might also be interested. Please tune in next week. Leslie will be joining me again to talk about Google Knowledge Panels and how lawyers, executives, and professionals can learn more about knowledge panels, what they are and the purpose that they serve, but also how they may be able to leverage these knowledge panels to become more of an authority in their respective spaces. Thanks, Leslie.
Nice to see you. Take care. Bye.
On Record PR is produced by Jennifer Simpson Carr and Matt Henderson, with support from the team at Furia Ruble Communications. This episode is edited by Isabel Horan and Christian Yamula. Visit www.onrecordpr.com for resources and more information.